Good day, guys. So today you and I are going to talk about chaos. So let's get into it. I hope you're sitting down for this one because I'm here to, well, let's just say that I'm here to crush you. I'm here to make you stop believing virtually in that there is happiness in the software industry. So this is going to be a rough run. Make sure that you're sitting down or that you have some type of comfort food to get you through what I'm about to tell you. Now, if you are a super senior developer, this is going to be nothing to you. It's not even going to grace you. If you are a wide-eyed junior developer who dreams of writing beautiful software, providing people with value and working in a nice code base that reflects your skill and the amazing work that you and your software team are doing on behalf of the users, this is me coming for you. I'm coming for you now. Reality is very different from what they teach you in school. When I first came out of the university as a software developer, they had drilled test-driven development, clean code. I've read all of the books by Uncle Bob. I've watched all the tech talks by Martin Fowler, all these big advocates of clean code, good practices, all that good stuff. I come out into the workforce and I sit down at my first job and I'm introduced to my first code base, my real code base, my first real professional level code base. And it is absolutely horrible. It's a mess of it was a Node.js project with an Angular frontend. It was so horrible that I almost fell to my knees and cried. But of course I wouldn't do that in front of my new colleagues and my new boss because, hey, they seem to be pretty okay with it. They seem to be just having an ordinary day. And I sat there and everything in my head was just screaming, how the hell can they make something like this? How are they not just slicing their wrists at the idea to be forced to work in this environment? And so I did what I thought was right. I started trying to refactor things, started breaking things left and right, creating tons and tons of issues, while my colleagues at the time, they kind of just lived with the situation. They shipped code, from my perspective, they simply kept on adding to the problems that I perceived to be big issues and went along with their day. And as their shim programming, which is what I call it, where they basically just shim things in and ship new features without actually taking care of the code base, as they just kept on doing that, their status, or my interpretation of their status within the company's my boss's eyes basically, seemed to always be at an all-time high, and me, who was trying to make things nice and kept on breaking shit, well, I just dropped in value. I kept on dropping. Finally, I get my second job. Same deal. Coming to that code base, it is an absolute horror show. It is so, gosh, and this is a project that is much larger. PHP project this time with the front end that has such entropy in the tooling. Like they had prototype, jQuery, React, and all kinds of messes. Same deal there. Blue, still pretty wide-eyed. A little bit more conservative this time. I start trying to fix things and I fuck up over and over and over and over. And this time I make one change to my process. I actually talk to somebody. And I don't just talk to just anybody. I talk to somebody who has been working for years and years and years. And I got the biggest and most important lecture of my career, I suppose. it was a real cold shower for somebody who has been convinced that my code is going to reflect my soul and the skill that I bring to the table. And my colleague told me this one truth. He said, Frederick, I understand what you're going for, and it's great to keep things nice and tidy in a project, but what you have to know is that most software projects, especially the older ones, the large ones, they are absolute chaos. And all you can really do is to kind of you pick your battles. Sometimes a small improvement in somewhere in the code base is feasible, but these big overhaul type of things that you have in mind, they are never going to work. You're just going to break things, and you, honest to God, you're not going to be able to refactor at the scale that would be required in order for you to keep a clean code base. And that was a harsh truth. And I understand if you're munching away at your ice cream right now, but that is reality. Odds are that you are going to spend most of your time working, unless you have a greenfield project, which is a name we give projects that you start from absolute scratch. Trust me, even if you start there, over time you are going to fuck up the code. Because it's not always somebody else who gives you a really bad code base to take care of. Sometimes it's actually you who give that code base away to somebody else. And that's the harshest truth I can give you. You are going to face a lot of bad code. You are going to spend more time trying to understand really bad software, really bad coding practices, and you're going to do what my colleague called the code mock, where you're going to sit down. This usually happens after a year or two of experience. You start looking at the code and you start, oh, what the fuck? How can anybody write this piece of garbage? And then you try to pull on things and you try to improve things, and then you realize, damn, this really ugly piece of code is connected into absolutely everything. That's why it's ugly, because the person who was there before me probably had the exact same thing that probably happened for them. They go, oh, this is really ugly, I'm gonna fix it. They try to fix it, and they probably either they fail at fixing it or they just make it worse. And that is the harshest truth in programming, at least for us and motivated, wide-eyed idealists out there. And that's why I think that this is a little bit harsh, but my colleague kind of, in his own words, he said that don't listen too much to Uncle Bob and Martin Fowler and these other idealistic speakers, because real software is never as perfect as it is made out, or it's as easy to keep perfect or clean as it's made out in these very nice slideshows. Because hey, if you were actually realistic in your slideshows, that would make a very nice and convincing slideshow, now would it? So how does this tie into you? Well, it's actually very simple. Brace yourself for having to deal with really, really bad software, and fight that urge to try and do big refactors, because trust me, or rather do them and learn through pain, as I did, really fuck up and get issues with your boss and get a lot of hate coming towards you until you finally burn your fingers enough to realize that shit, you can't actually approach the problem in that manner. And when you have that experience and when you understand all that, you just realize that what you should actually focus more on in order to effectively work in software is to try to become the sort of person who takes the time to try and understand the ugliness. Really try to understand what is ugly, because when you truly understand the reasons why the code works the way it works, that's when you can start chipping away a little piece at a time at that major problem. Because trust me, the worst thing you can do is to just look at the really big ugly code and say, hey, me with a fraction of the experience of the people who probably wrote that thing in the first place, I'm just going to clean everything up. And trust me, most times when you come to a company, everybody's going to say the same thing to you. They're going to say, oh, these are our problem areas and we would really like to improve this. When they say they would like, if they ever use that term, would like to, that means that in theory it would make them happy that you fix that thing, but it's not. That doesn't mean. But it also means that they have more important things that they want to focus on. And that's the nature of the world. That's the nature of everything. There is no such thing as creating something that is flawless and perfect. And if you want to survive as a software developer and not basically put things to trip yourself up and create issues for yourself, you have to understand that you will never ever work in a perfect project. You will probably not even work in a clean project. I would even say this to you. There is no such thing as a clean project. There are just varying degrees of neglect.